welcome to Teen Tuesday, where we're gonna do a bunch of fun experiments and crafts and activities and fun stuff together. So for our first one here for January, I saw that January 11th is National Milk Day. So I was like, what can we do with milk? Well, turns out you can make plastic from milk. It's a bioplastic. It is sustainable, biodegradable, and even edible. It's actually good for you, but I don't think it'd be tasty. I made some before. This is my little circle of plastic that I made from milk. Now, it's not completely dry yet. When it's dry, it's gonna be more firm than this, but they used to use this casein plastic to make things like buttons and beads and pens and buckles. They made jewelry out of it, and even the Queen of England wore jewelry made out of casein plastic. Do you think she'd wear this? I think she would. But just in case she wouldn't, I'm gonna make her some beads today with you so that we can send some beautiful jewelry to the Queen. So, what do you need to make plastic out of milk? Well, you need milk. That's the main thing. And you need an acid, like vinegar. And you need heat. So I've got a pan and a little hot plate here. And the heat and the acid will work on the milk. It will rearrange the molecule from a folded state into a long string that we can play with. You're also gonna need a strainer and some cheesecloth because you gotta strain out the milk part to just get the protein part. A bowl, and some measuring stuff, and a stirry thing. And then anything you want to decorate your casein with. So I've got glitter. You can even use food coloring. You can paint it when it's dry. You can do markers on it. You can do all kinds of things with it. And you can even sand it and cut it to make it into fun shapes. So what we're gonna do first is put our milk into our pan. So I'm going to do 2 cups of milk. So I've got my cup measurer here. And I'm using whole milk. Any milk will work, but I read whole milk works better, maybe because it has more of that protein in it. And you can heat your milk up in the microwave, but the way the microwave cooks it, it does things to the molecules that make it so that's not as good of a plastic when you're done. So stovetop works best. It's a little gentler on things. So we're gonna time travel for a minute here while I heat up my milk. It should get heated till it's steamy and maybe a little bit foamy, but not boiling. And you don't want it to burn. Otherwise, you're gonna start destroying those proteins that you need. So it just needs to be hot, like you would have for hot chocolate, okay? All right, we're gonna time travel. Welcome to the future where my milk is nice and steamy. So we can see it's starting to foam on top. We see some steam coming off, but it's not at a full boil. So that's about the temperature we want. And we're gonna bring it on over here. Just let it simmer there for a second. And we're gonna measure out our acid. Now, you don't need very much acid to curdle milk. You might already know this. It's never an easy way to learn that lesson. But we only need 1 tablespoon for every cup of milk. So we're just gonna put 2 tablespoons of this vinegar. I'm gonna put it into this little paper cup. Okay. Now, I'm going to add it to my hot milk, and you're gonna see the reaction pretty quickly. It's going to unfold these casein molecules, which right now look like little circles with squigglies around them. And it's gonna unfold those squigglies and line them all up into a plastic polymer. So I'm gonna pour this in here nice and slowly, and you're gonna start to see it get weird. You can already see it starting to separate there. And now I'm just gonna stir, and you're gonna see the curdling happen. So we're gonna stir for about 30 seconds. So we're gonna take a quick jump into the future. So you can see these globs forming. This is the casein, and it's curds. It's milk curds, kind of like the cheese curds you get at the farmer's market, except at this state, not so yummy. So don't eat this. I mean, you can eat this. They actually make protein powder for weightlifters out of casein protein. So it is good for you, but it's really smelly right now. So what we're gonna do is take our smelly curd globs and strain them, because we don't need all this curdled milk juice. Yuck. All right, so I'm gonna start off with a regular strainer. Have a grown-up help you, because this is still hot. And we're gonna separate out the goop. Now, you'll see some sticks in your pan. Get as much of that out as you can. Do not put chunks of this down your sink, because it's plastic. It is biodegradable, so it's not going to be plastic forever. And tiny pieces won't affect it, but don't put the big pieces down. It'll make you sad. So we're just going to gently kind of shake the liquid out of this. We don't want to smush it down in this, because then you're going to get plastic in your strainer and it's hard to get out. So we're just going to give it a little wiggle to get the juiciness out. And then we're going to smoosh it in some cheesecloth to get a little bit more of the moisture out. We don't want all of the moisture out, because then it'll be kind of crumbly. You can see it has a crumbly texture already, and we don't want it to get too dry. But thunk, thunk, thunk. But we don't want it to be like squidgy. All right, so done with this delicious soup. And I've got this on top of some wax paper just to protect the tabletop. And we're just gonna soak. Oh, and I've got gloves for this part, because it's also it's smelly. It does not smell good. So if you're using food coloring too, this is about when you would add it, and you definitely want gloves then, otherwise you'll be very colorful. So just gonna squeeze out a lot of this extra moisture until you can see that it's kind of pliable but not drippy anymore. So then we're gonna take our curd chunks here, and we're gonna knead them a little bit like bread dough. So see, this is super disgusting but really fun. It feels good. And we're just gonna knead it for a second. We don't wanna go too long, because we don't want it to get too dried out or too cool until we're done molding it into what we want. Now, if you have a cookie cutter, you can smush it and cut out shapes. If you have candy molds, you can make all kinds of little toys and figures. Like I said, we're gonna make some beads for the Queen of England. So I'm just gonna kind of smush these into bead shapes-ish. And then I have a dowel here that I can use to make a little hole through it. Now it looks a little globby, but keep in mind, like I said, oh, it's not working very well. You can sand and paint and polish it once it is dry. So it's not in its finished state yet, but we can boop, poke a little hole through there for our bead wire. And then, because she's a fancy lady, we're gonna need to add some glitter. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of sparkle on here. Whew, there we go. Kind of smooth it around a little, press it into the trapped in the glitter. Okay, there we go. And just kind of shape that, press it around, get it sparkly, and then you can make all kinds of stuff out of what's left here. Maybe we'll make Miss Ashley a bookmark. So we just gotta squish, for that we'll wanna squish it pretty flat, because we want it to fit between the pages of her book. So it doesn't need to be a perfect shape yet, because like I said, when it's dry, that's when I'll cut it with scissors or a knife, and then sand the edges to make it smooth. So just need to make it roughly the shape. And the thinner it is, the faster it'll dry. So just get it nice and thin. Now, while it's drying, if it's thin like this, it can curl. So what I did with this piece here was I put it between two pieces of wax paper, and I put a heavy book on top for the first day to let it dry. It takes about 2 to 3 days to dry completely. This one's been a little less than 2 days, so it's not all the way dry, but you can see it's kind of going clear where it's completely dry and gotten harder. So that's where, like if I'd added red food coloring, this would look like kind of a clearish red color. And if you look online, you can see lots of cool pictures of the beads and things that they made out of this plastic back in the 1800s and things, including cool fountain pens. And I think Miss Ashley, she's a fancy lady too. I think she did some glitter on her bookmark too. So I'm gonna put some more glitter for science. Kind of smooth it around. And you can just kind of press it in, and it's not going anywhere. So that is one way you can play with your case in plastic, but it also has lots of practical things you can do with it too, besides just making toys and fun things. And they've actually found that it's an excellent plastic for like food storage and things like that. And actually works better to keep oxygen away from food storage 500 times better than the plastics we're using now, which are not biodegradable. So I think there's some cool stuff coming from case and plastic. So go ahead and try this at home. You probably have most of what you need already. And show me some pictures of what you make. I want to see all your cool arts and crafts with our stinky mushy plastic.